Listen, family, life is not about what happens to you. Life is about what happens through you. The truth is, the thing you focus on the most will determine the harvest you reap. You see, the soil of your life doesn't argue. It doesn't say, no, I don't want this seed. Your life produces what you plant. Think about that for a moment. If a farmer puts corn into the soil, he doesn't go back expecting wheat. If he plants apple seeds, he doesn't stand in front of that tree years later and demand oranges. The soil doesn't argue, it doesn't resist, it doesn't say, I refuse to grow that. The soil just responds to seed. That's exactly how your mind and your focus work. Your thoughts, your attention, your focus are seeds, and the harvest of your life is determined by what you continually plant. The truth is, many people spend their lives planting weeds and wondering why their field is full of thorns. They constantly focus on fear, lack, pain, and disappointment, and then they're surprised when fear, lack, pain, and disappointment multiply in their experience. But the soil of life is neutral. It doesn't take sides. It just says, whatever you plant, I'll multiply. When you wake up in the morning, you are planting. The very first thoughts you entertain, the emotions you rehearse, the conversations you repeat in your mind, those are seeds. If you spend your mornings saying, I'm tired, I'm broke, I'm stressed, I never catch a break, then guess what? You are sowing seeds of exhaustion, scarcity, frustration, and defeat, and the soil of your life doesn't have the ability to say, wait, hold on, let me give you joy and prosperity instead. No, it simply takes the seeds you offer it and reproduces them in your reality. That's why being intentional with focus is so important. If you want a harvest of peace, you plant thoughts of gratitude. If you want a harvest of abundance, you plant visions of prosperity. If you want a harvest of love, you plant forgiveness, kindness, and compassion. Now here's the danger. Some people keep planting negative seeds while praying for a positive harvest. They keep speaking words of defeat while hoping for victory. That's like planting dandelions and then asking for strawberries. It doesn't work that way. The Creator built the universe with laws that cannot be broken, and one of those laws is sowing and reaping. You cannot reap what you have not sown, and you will not reap anything different than what you consistently sow. So the question is not whether your life is producing. The question is, what kind of seed are you putting in the ground? Let me give you an example. Two people can go through the exact same challenge, and their harvest looks completely different. One person loses their job and focuses on despair, telling themselves they are worthless, unlucky, or cursed. Their focus produces more hopelessness and eventually more missed opportunities. Another person loses their job and says, this is the soil for a new seed. This is the moment I focus on building a skill, starting a business, or finding a better opportunity. Their focus produces resourcefulness, creativity, and ultimately a new path to success. The situation didn't create the difference, the focus did. The reason your life produces what you plant is because your focus controls your energy and your energy directs your actions. If you keep focusing on problems, you'll spend your time magnifying them instead of solving them. But if you focus on solutions, you'll start seeing possibilities you didn't see before. It's not magic, it's alignment. Your mind becomes a magnet for the things you consistently give attention to, and those things start showing up in your life. This means every single day, every single thought, every single focus moment is a seed, planting opportunity. You cannot afford to be careless with your focus because carelessness produces weeds, and weeds don't need permission to grow. They just take over. But when you become intentional, when you start saying, I'm going to choose what I plant, I'm going to choose what I focus on, your life begins to shift. Instead of weeds, you start seeing fruit. Instead of lack, you start seeing abundance. Instead of fear, you start experiencing confidence. So the invitation is simple. Take responsibility for the seeds you're planting. Stop blaming the soil. Stop blaming the weather. Stop blaming the harvest. Your life is producing exactly what you have planted through your focus. And the good news is this: if you don't like the harvest you're seeing, you can always change the seed, because when you change what you focus on, you change what you attract. And when you change what you plant, you change the harvest your life produces. Focus multiplies. What you feed, whatever you give your time, energy, and attention to will expand, whether you want it to or not. It's like putting water on a plant. The more you water it, the more it grows. Now, here's the thing, this principle doesn't care if you're watering roses or if you're watering weeds. It doesn't make a judgment call about whether what you're feeding is good for you or destructive to you. It simply takes what you give attention to and magnifies it in your life. That's why some people find themselves stuck in cycles they can't seem to escape. They keep feeding their fears, replaying the same disappointments, talking about the same problems, and then wonder why life keeps multiplying fear, disappointment, and problems. Think about how the human brain works. Your mind has something called the reticular activating system, and its job is to highlight and bring to your attention whatever you are focused on. It's why when you buy a new car, suddenly you see that same model everywhere. The cars were always there, but your focus tuned your brain to notice them. The same principle applies to your life. If you focus on opportunities, your brain will begin to see opportunities everywhere. If you focus on problems, your brain will show you more reasons to feel overwhelmed. Life will multiply whatever you keep feeding. This is why gratitude is so powerful. Gratitude doesn't change your circumstances immediately, but it changes what you notice and therefore what multiplies. When you wake up and begin listing things you're grateful for, you're feeding contentment, peace, and joy. Suddenly you start noticing more things that make you feel grateful, and life begins to look different. On the other hand, when you constantly feed frustration, complaining about what you don't have, about what's not working, about who hurt you, you're watering seeds that will grow into bitterness and resentment, and those plants don't stay small. They multiply until they choke out the possibility of joy. The truth is, your focus is like sunlight. Whatever you shine it on grows stronger. When you focus on your pain, the pain becomes sharper. When you focus on your failures, they become heavier. But when you shift your focus towards solutions, even if the problem doesn't vanish instantly, your ability to overcome multiplies. That's why people can experience the same difficulty but end up with two very different outcomes. One fed the fear and the other fed the faith. One focused on the barrier, the other focused on the breakthrough. The results multiplied in the direction of their focus. This means you must guard your focus like a precious resource, because it is one. Every day you're either investing it in what you want more of or wasting it on what you want less of. If you're always talking about being broke, you're feeding scarcity. If you're always talking about being unlucky in relationships, you're feeding loneliness. If you're always talking about your anxiety, you're feeding fear. But when you start talking about your goals, your dreams, your future, you're feeding possibilities. You're giving life to something that wants to grow inside of you. One of the greatest tragedies is when people feed their distractions more than their destiny. They spend hours scrolling social media, comparing themselves to others, feeding jealousy and insecurity. They spend days gossiping, replaying offenses, feeding anger and resentment. All the while their dreams sit in the corner starving. Focus multiplies what you feed, and if you keep feeding distractions, they will grow until they own you. But if you make a shift, if you start feeding your goals, your faith, your vision, and your discipline, those things will grow until they change your life. So the real question you need to ask yourself is, what am I feeding? Because what you feed will never stay small. The things you starve will die, and the things you feed will thrive. If you're tired of fear ruling your life, stop feeding it with negative self-talk. If you're tired of doubt stealing your dreams, stop feeding it with constant worry. Starve your distractions and feed your destiny. Focus on the seeds of faith, vision, and purpose. Because the moment you decide to give your attention to what you actually want, life will multiply it and bring it back to you in ways you never imagined. Your focus creates your future. Every result you are living in right now is a reflection of what you have been focusing on in past. The career you have, the relationships you're in, the money you've earned or lost, the level of peace or stress in your life. All of it is a product of what you repeatedly gave your mind attention to. Focus is the architect of destiny. If you focus on lack, then lack becomes the blueprint you hand to your future. If you focus on abundance, then abundance becomes the plan that gets built. The reason this happens is simple. Your focus shapes your beliefs shape your decisions, and your decisions determine your outcomes. So the life you're living is not an accident. It is the harvest of focus. The powerful thing about this principle is that it works both ways. If your focus has been negative, then your life will produce negative outcomes. But if you change your Focus, you literally begin to change the future you are walking into. This is why vision is so important. People who succeed in life are not just more talented, they are more focused on where they're going. They hold a clear picture in their mind of what they want their life to look like, and that focus directs their energy, attracts resources, and opens doors. When you lack vision, your focus drifts, and when your focus drifts, your life drifts. But when your vision is sharp, your focus gets anchored, and your future takes shape in alignment with that vision. Consider how athletes train. They don't just focus on what's happening today. They focus on the championship they want to win. Their training, diet, and discipline are shaped by that future focus. Because they are focused on a bigger goal, they can push through pain and delay gratification. Their future is created by the focus they hold in the present. In the same way, if you want a different life tomorrow, you must hold a different focus today. If you keep focusing on everything that went wrong yesterday, you'll recreate it tomorrow. But if you focus on what you want to manifest, your energy will begin to align with that picture and you will create momentum toward it. This is also why worry is so destructive. Worry is simply focusing on the wrong future. When you worry, you are imagining scenarios of failure, loss, or disaster, and because focus attracts, you start walking unconsciously toward the very thing you fear. Worry robs your energy and sets the wrong blueprint for your future. Faith, on the other hand, is also focus, but it's focus on a positive future. Faith is seeing what you want as though it's already yours. When you focus in faith, you build a future that aligns with promise instead of fear. Both worry and faith are acts of focus. One builds the future you dread, and the other builds the future you desire. You can't escape this truth. Your focus is always pulling your life in a direction. The question is, which direction is it pulling you? If you spend your days focused on resentment, you are building a future where bitterness controls your relationships. If you focus on personal growth, you are building a future where success and self-mastery shape your outcomes. If you focus on possibilities, you are building a future filled with opportunities. Your future is not waiting on the government, your boss, or your circumstances. It's waiting on your focus. So when you look at where you are right now, don't just ask, why am I here? Ask, what have I been focusing on that produced this? Then ask, what future am I building with the focus I have today? Because your focus is like the steering wheel of your life. Wherever you fix your gaze, your life will eventually follow. If you keep staring in the rear-view mirror, you will crash. But if you keep your eyes on the road ahead, your journey will move in the direction of your vision. Focus creates the future, so choose wisely, because your tomorrow is being built by the attention you give today. Change your lens, change your life. The way you see a situation has more influence over the outcome than the situation itself. Two people can go through the exact same circumstance, and one comes out bitter while the other comes out better. The difference isn't what happened, it's the lens they were looking through. Your focus acts like a lens on a camera. If the lens is scratched, dirty, or clouded, the picture will always look distorted, no matter how beautiful the scenery actually is. In the same way, when your internal lens is clouded by negativity, past pain, or limiting beliefs, your life looks worse than it really is, and you begin to attract experiences that match the distorted image you see. When you shift your lens, you change what comes into focus. You begin to see opportunities instead of obstacles, blessings instead of burdens, growth instead of setbacks. Most people don't realize this, but perception is powerful. The story you tell yourself about what's happening matters more than the event itself. Lose your job and you can tell yourself, this is proof I'm a failure. Or you can tell yourself, this is my chance to discover a better path. Same event, completely different outcomes because the lens is different. The problem many people face is they've been living for years with the wrong lens. A lens of lack where they only see what's missing, a lens of fear where they only see what might go wrong, a lens of victimhood where they only see how unfair life is. And the challenge with a wrong lens is this: you will always find evidence to support it. If you believe the world is against you, you'll see signs of opposition everywhere. If you believe nothing ever works out for you, you'll interpret every delay as proof of that belief. The lens you look through colors your reality, but here's the good news: you get to choose your lens. You are not stuck with the one life handed you. Just because you grew up hearing, money doesn't grow on trees, doesn't mean you have to see abundance as impossible. Just because someone told you that you weren't good enough doesn't mean you have to keep looking through the lens of inadequacy. You can decide to put on a new lens, one that sees possibility, favor, and growth. The moment you do, your world begins to shift, not because the external circumstances instantly change, but because your focus changes what you notice, what you pursue, and what you attract. Think about gratitude again. Gratitude is a lens. When you put it on, you start to see blessings in places you once overlooked. A smile from a stranger becomes a gift. Food on your table becomes a miracle. The breath in your lungs becomes a reminder of opportunity. Nothing changed externally, but everything changed internally because your lens was adjusted. Joy, peace, and clarity are always available. It's just a matter of whether your lens allows you to see them. This principle explains why successful people often see opportunities where others only see problems. Their lens is tuned to possibility. When the economy shifts, most people panic, but a few see room for innovation. When something fails, most people complain, but a few see a lesson to apply next time. The future belongs to the ones who learn to clean their lens and shift their focus. Your lens also determines your emotional state. If your lens is focused on what you've lost, you'll live in sadness. If your lens is focused on who wronged you, you'll live in anger. But if your lens is focused on what you can learn, who you can bless, and how you can grow, you'll live in strength. Life doesn't get lighter because the weight is removed. It gets lighter because the way you see it changes. So the call to action is simple. Check your lens. If the world looks hopeless, maybe your lens is cloudy. If everything feels against you, maybe it's time to change the way you're seeing, not just what you're seeing. Clean your focus, adjust your perspective, and life will begin to reflect a new image back to you, because in the end, your perception becomes your reality, and when you change your lens, you don't just change how you see life, you change the life you experience. Magnified focus creates power. A magnifying glass by itself doesn't have the ability to burn anything, but when you take sunlight, which is already powerful, and concentrate it through that glass, the intensity becomes so strong it can set wood on fire or even melt metal. That is the same principle at work in your life. Your energy, your ideas, your abilities, they are like sunlight. Spread out in every direction, they may feel warm, but they are not powerful enough to ignite anything. But when you gather them together, when you direct your focus toward a single aim, your life develops a level of intensity that can break through obstacles and create results that seemed impossible before. The challenge most people face is not that they don't have potential, it's that their potential is scattered. They want 10 different things at once. They jump from one distraction to another. They start projects but never finish them. They live with divided attention, and the result of scattered focus is scattered results. Imagine trying to boil water by striking a match in 10 different places instead of holding the flame steady under one pot. You'd use up energy but never get the result. That's what a scattered life looks like. Busy, exhausted, but with very little to show for it. Magnified focus is the opposite. It says, I'm going to stop dividing my energy and I'm going to concentrate on what matters most. When you lock in on a goal, when you pour your attention into your vision, when you stop chasing everything and start pursuing something, the power of focus intensifies your progress. You start building momentum because all your resources, your time, your mind, your faith are being channeled into one direction, and when momentum builds, breakthroughs happen. Consider an athlete training for the Olympics. They don't dabble in 10 different sports. They magnify their focus on one discipline day after day, year after year, until they master it. That magnified focus creates power. The same is true for entrepreneurs who build great businesses, artists who produce world-changing work, or leaders who impact nations. It's not that they had more hours in the day, it's that they brought intensity to their focus. While others were distracted, they were dialed in. There's also a spiritual truth here. God designed you with purpose, and when your focus aligns with that purpose, you tap into divine momentum. It's like putting a sail in line with the wind. Suddenly you move with greater speed, not because you are stronger, but because you are aligned. Magnified focus is alignment in action. It takes your natural abilities and aligns them with a greater power, producing Results that far exceed what you could do scattered in 100 directions. The danger of modern life is distraction. Technology, entertainment, and comparison pull your focus in 1,000 directions every day. If you're not intentional, you'll find yourself giving more attention to trivial things than to transformational things. Hours disappear into scrolling, gossip, and meaningless busyness while your destiny sits untouched. That's why magnified focus requires discipline. It requires you to say no to the lesser so you can say yes to the greater. It requires you to stop watering every plant in the field and start nurturing the seed that produces fruit. When you choose magnified focus, people might not understand. They may call you obsessed, intense, or even strange. But that's only because they're used to scattered living. Don't let their opinions weaken your commitment. The fire of magnified focus doesn't just burn brighter. It burns through barriers. It consumes doubt. It cuts through distractions, and it clears the path to results. So ask yourself, where is my focus? Is it scattered across everything, or is it magnified on what really matters? Because the difference between average and extraordinary is not talent, it's focus. When you choose to magnify your focus, your life begins to generate a power that attracts resources, creates breakthroughs, and transforms the impossible into the inevitable. Sunlight warms, but magnified sunlight burns. Your life has the same choice, to remain scattered and comfortable, or to become focused and unstoppable. Where your focus goes, your feelings and choices follow. Human beings often think they are driven by circumstances, but the reality is we are driven by attention. Whatever you fix your focus on begins to shape how you feel, and how you feel determines the quality of the decisions you make. If your focus is on everything that's wrong in your life, it won't be long before discouragement sets in, and discouragement doesn't produce bold choices. It produces hesitation, fear, and sometimes paralysis. On the other hand, if you shift your focus to what's possible, what's working, to what you can control, your emotions shift toward hope and determination, and those emotions fuel courageous decisions that create progress. This is why two people can go through the same storm and come out with different outcomes. One spends the entire time focused on the darkness of the clouds and sinks into despair. The other fixes their eyes on the possibility of new beginnings after the storm, and that focus generates peace and resilience. The storm didn't decide their outcome, their focus did. Feelings don't just come out of nowhere, they are born out of focus. And those feelings either empower or disempower your decision, making think about it in practical terms. If you focus on betrayal from the past, your emotions will lean toward distrust, bitterness, and anger. Those emotions will influence your choices. Maybe you shut people out. Maybe you sabotage new relationships. Maybe you miss opportunities because you refuse to trust anyone. Your focus created your feelings, and your feelings directed your decisions. But imagine instead you focus on the lesson learned from that betrayal. Now the feeling shifts from anger to wisdom, from bitterness to discernment. That emotional shift then influences your choices in a more constructive direction. You protect yourself wisely without closing yourself off completely. You attract better people, and you build healthier relationships. Same event, completely different decisions, all because of focus. This principle explains why people who constantly focus on lack make poor financial decisions. If your focus is "I never have enough," then your emotions lean toward panic and scarcity. Panic-driven emotions make you buy out of fear or hoard out of anxiety. Those choices keep you in the cycle of lack. But when your focus is on abundance, on creativity, on opportunities, your emotions lean toward confidence and resourcefulness. That emotional state allows you to take calculated risks, invest wisely, and act boldly, which opens the door to greater provision. Your focus is also a filter. If you focus on problems, your emotions are filtered through frustration, and your decisions become reactive. But if you focus on solutions, your emotions are filtered through curiosity and hope, and your decisions become proactive. That's why leaders who maintain solution-focused attention inspire trust. People follow them not because problems disappear, but because their focus generates emotions of confidence and vision, which lead to wise and decisive actions. One of the most destructive things you can do is allow your focus to drift on autopilot. If you don't intentionally direct your focus, it will default to fear, negativity, and distraction, because that's what the world constantly feeds you, and once your focus is hijacked, your emotions are hijacked, and soon your decisions follow suit. That's why discipline of focus is one of the most valuable skills you can develop. Every time you choose to shift your attention from what drains you to what strengthens you, from what limits you to what frees you, you are redirecting the trajectory of your life. The good news is you don't have to wait for perfect circumstances to feel empowered. You simply need to redirect your focus, change the channel in your mind, stop watching the rerun of past failures, and start projecting the highlight reel of your future possibilities. Your emotions will shift in alignment with the new focus, and your decisions will follow. And once your decisions shift, your life moves in a new direction. So remember this truth: focus is the starting point, feelings are the echo, and decisions are the outcome. If you want better decisions, trace it back to better feelings. And if you want better feelings, trace it back to better focus. Control the front end, and the back end will take care of itself. When you learn to master your focus, you won't just change what you think about, you will change how you feel and what you choose, and those choices will create the life you were designed to live. Stop rehearsing the past and start prophesying the future. One of the greatest reasons people remain stuck where they are is because they spend more time replaying what has already happened than envisioning what could happen next. They live in a cycle of rehearsals, rehearsing failure, rehearsing betrayal, rehearsing disappointment until the past becomes their present over and over again. It's like watching the same movie every night and expecting the ending to change. If your focus is always locked on the wounds of yesterday, then your future will simply be a repeat performance of your past. The truth is, you can't drive forward while staring in the rearview mirror. If you do, you'll end up crashing into the very things you were meant to pass by. Life was never designed to be lived backward. The past is a place of reference, not a place of residence. Its purpose is to teach, to instruct, to reveal lessons that can empower your future. But too many people make the past their permanent address. They rehearse old conversations, old mistakes, old heartbreaks, and by doing so, they unconsciously speak them into existence again and again. When you shift from rehearsing the past to prophesying the future, you change the script of your life. Prophecy is not just about predicting, it's about declaring. It's about speaking life into your tomorrow with words of faith, vision, and intention. Instead of saying, "I'll never succeed because I failed before," you begin to say, "I am wiser now and I will succeed at a greater level." Instead of saying, "I always get hurt," you begin to say, "I attract love, peace, and strong relationships." When you prophesy your future, you give your focus permission to create a new reality. Think about it. Every word you speak is a seed, and your life is the soil. When you keep rehearsing the past, you are planting the same seeds that already produced a harvest you didn't enjoy. Why would you plant them again? But when you prophesy your future, you are planting seeds of vision and possibility. Over time, those seeds take root and produce a harvest of transformation. This is why successful people spend more time talking about where they're going than where they've been. They understand that focus is a magnet and their words are the steering wheel. This principle also explains why unforgiveness is so dangerous. When you hold on to bitterness, you rehearse the offense, the pain, and the betrayal. Every time you relive it, you give it new power over your life. But when you release it and speak life over yourself instead, you break the cycle. You move from being chained to what was done to you to being empowered by what lies ahead of you. Forgiveness is not about excusing the past. It's about refusing to keep rehearsing it so you can prophesy something better. Rehearsing the past keeps you in survival mode. You're always trying to manage pain, avoid disappointment, or protect yourself from another wound. Prophesying the future puts you in creation mode. You begin to build, to expect, to attract. You stop living as a victim of what happened and start living as a designer of what's coming. That mental shift is where transformation begins. It's important to understand that prophesying the future doesn't mean ignoring reality. It means speaking a greater reality into existence. It means aligning your words and focus with God's promises. Instead of your past pain, Scripture says life and death are in the power of the tongue. When you rehearse the past, you speak death into your destiny. When you prophesy the future, you speak life into your tomorrow. So the question you must ask yourself is, what story am I telling? Am I repeating the old one that leaves me stuck? Or am I writing a new one with my words, my focus, and my vision? The choice is always yours. Stop wasting energy rehearsing the same hurts and failures. Start declaring where you're headed, who you're becoming, and what blessings are on their way. Because when you stop rehearsing the past and start prophesying the future, your focus shifts from what's behind you to what's in front of you, and that shift doesn't just change your outlook, it changes your life. Your world is a mirror of your focus. If you really pause and think about it, everything around you is a reflection of what you have chosen to consistently give your attention to. The car you drive, the friends you keep, the health of your body, the peace or chaos of your home. All of it mirrors what you've been focusing on internally. Focus is like an invisible paintbrush. It colors your environment even if you don't notice it happening in the moment. People wonder why their life looks the way it does, but they don't realize their inner world is the blueprint that shaped the outer one. Whatever dominates your thoughts eventually dominates your life. When you consistently focus on negativity, you attract situations, people, and opportunities that align with that negativity. It's not magic, it's principle. If your mind is always tuned to failure, then when opportunities come, you won't see them because your focus blinds you. Your world will mirror that focus by showing you more reasons to validate what you already believe. If you think everyone is against you, you'll notice slights, you'll magnify criticism, and you'll overlook kindness. Your world will become evidence of your expectation. On the other hand, when you focus on possibilities, when you choose to look for growth, opportunities, and blessings, suddenly those things start showing up in your life. Not because they weren't there before, but because your focus has trained your eyes to see them. This is why two people can walk into the same situation and walk out with totally different experiences. One person focuses on what went wrong and leaves defeated. The other focuses on what can be learned and leaves empowered. The difference is not the situation, it's the focus, and whatever they focused on becomes the reality they carry into their future. This means that if you don't like the way your world looks, you don't have to start by changing everything outside of you. You start by changing the focus inside of you, because when the inside shifts, the outside will reflect it. This is also why gratitude is so powerful. Gratitude shifts your focus from lack to abundance, from complaints to blessings. When you practice gratitude, your world begins to mirror it by showing you more things to be grateful for. It's not that life suddenly becomes perfect. It's that your eyes are tuned to see beauty where before you only saw problems, and as you continue to focus on that, your actions change, your energy changes, your relationships change, and over time, your external world reflects your internal gratitude. The mirror principle also explains why some people remain trapped in cycles of poverty, toxic relationships, or unhealthy patterns. Their focus is stuck on wrong reflection. They wake up thinking about what's missing, what's unfair, or who did them wrong. They meditate on lack, they talk about lack, and eventually their world mirrors that lack. Breaking free requires a shift in focus. It means deliberately choosing to see abundance even before it shows up, speaking life even when circumstances look dead, and focusing on possibilities even when problems seem overwhelming. When you do this consistently, your world has no choice but to mirror that new focus. It's important to remember that mirrors don't lie, they simply reflect. Your world isn't unfairly against you, it is simply reflecting what you've consistently focused on. That might sound harsh, but it's actually empowering, because if your focus created the reality you don't like, then a new focus can create a reality you do like. That's the gift hidden in this principle. You don't have to be stuck. You don't have to keep attracting the same cycles. You have the power to change the reflection by changing what you choose to give attention to. So take inventory of your focus. What are you thinking about most of the time? What conversations are you rehearsing in your mind? What emotions are you feeding daily? That is what your world will mirror. If you want a life of peace, focus on peace. If you want opportunities, focus on solutions. If you want love, focus on giving love. Don't wait for the world to change before you change your focus. Change your focus and watch how the world mirrors it back to you. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. That's not just a clever phrase, it's a spiritual law. Your life is not determined by the circumstances outside of you, but by the focus inside of you. The Bible makes it clear that what happens in your heart, in your inner world, will manifest in your outer world. This means your focus is not just about thoughts, it's about destiny. What you consistently think, believe, and focus on becomes the prophecy of your life. Your thoughts are not neutral. They are creative forces that either build or destroy, bless or curse, expand or shrink your life. If you think in your heart that you are not worthy, your actions will align with that belief, and you will unconsciously repel opportunities. If you think you are destined to fail, your choices will lead you toward failure because you've already written that prophecy in your own heart. On the other hand, if you think in your heart that you are capable, blessed, and destined for greatness, you will start to act with confidence, take risks, and attract doors that align with that focus. It is not luck, it is alignment. Life moves in the direction of your dominant focus. This principle is why so many people remain trapped. They try to change their life by changing external conditions, moving to a new city, starting a new job, or switching relationships. But if their heart focus hasn't shifted, they end up repeating the same patterns in a different place with different faces. You can change the scenery, but if you don't change the script in your heart, the story will be the same. Your focus writes the story, and your world acts it out. That's why the Bible doesn't say, as a man's environment is, so is he. It says, as a man thinketh in his heart. The heart is the factory of reality. What you think about in your heart long enough becomes a belief, and once it becomes a belief, it shapes your habits, your language, your relationships, and your future. Focus is the seed, belief is the root, destiny is the fruit. If you want to change the fruit you're producing in life, you must first change the seed you're planting in your heart through focus. This is why God tells us to guard our hearts with all diligence, because out of it flow the issues of life. In other words, your heart is a fountain, and your focus determines what's flowing out of it. If you let fear, anger, and doubt dominate your focus, that's what will flow into your life. But if you let faith, vision, and gratitude dominate your focus, your life will begin to overflow with those things. The heart cannot keep secrets. Whatever you focus on, it will eventually show up outside of it. It's also why affirmation and meditation are so powerful. When you affirm who you are in Christ, when you meditate on the promises of God, you are training your focus and reshaping the blueprint of your heart. Over time, that becomes your reality because your actions, your energy, and even the people you attract begin to align with what you truly believe about yourself. The world can only give back to you what you have already focused on in your heart. So the question you must wrestle with is not, what do I want in life? But rather, what am I focused on in my heart? Because your focus is the prophecy of your destiny. If you want abundance, shift your heart to focus on abundance. If you want love, shift your heart to focus on love. If you want purpose, focus on the calling God has placed within you. Stop entertaining distractions that plant seeds of doubt and defeat. Start watering the seeds of faith and vision. Your heart is the soil of your destiny. Your focus is the seed. God has given you the power to plant what you want to harvest. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. That is not optional. It is inevitable. So choose today what you will think, what you will focus on, and what you will prophesy. Because your life will not become what you wish for. It will become what you focus on and believe in your heart.